As a veteran New York Times reporter, I've witnessed many of history's painful moments. This ranks high on that list. Every week at this desert crossroads, smugglers pack thousands of desperate young people onto trucks, bound for a journey they may never survive. They come from places like Senegal, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, Gambia, but they all have one destination in common: the shores of Europe. What I want to know is how much of this massive human migration is being pushed by climate change.
The tide of migrants fleeing war-torn African and Middle Eastern countries continues to crash.
We're bang in the middle of a crisis.
Europe is suffering the worst migration crisis since World War II. Nearly 2 million people in the last year alone have been on the move. Syrian refugees dominate the headlines, but that is not the whole story. This shelter is home to migrants from Africa. I'm told its occupancy has recently doubled.
Why did you originally come? What were the forces that brought you here?
Parce qu'il n'y a rien chez nous, en fait. Il n'y a pas de pluie. Et les gens, ils ne peuvent pas rester sans manger.
No rain.
No rain.
45 degrés, 50 degrés. Comment une pluie ou bien une personne même peut vivre? C'est très difficile.
Il n'y a pas de mer, la terre ne marche plus, même tous les grands arbres sont tous morts.
There is no sea, and the earth doesn't work.
The shelter I just left is actually in a suburb of Paris. Less than a mile away, the biggest environmental talks in history are taking place. The goal is to stop the advance of man-made climate change. This is the story I came to Paris to report. But the migration crisis on its doorstep is simply impossible to ignore.
Mr. Secretary, to what extent is the European migrant crisis, which we're really now in the middle of right here in Paris, to what extent do you think that's climate-driven?
Well, there's a percentage, Tom. It's not the majority.
Because we're getting a lot of African refugees, particularly from the dry lands of Africa.
The biggest challenge globally, I think, is governance, bad governance, and corruption. It could be more climate-driven in the future, and it's a real challenge.
Many leaders acknowledge climate migration as some distant threat. But could this future already be here?
Every second, a person is now forced to flee his home because of an extreme weather or climate event. Every second.
Jan Egeland heads up the Norwegian Refugee Council, one of the world's first refugee organizations, now operating in 30 countries. I asked to meet with him one-on-one to hear about the changes he's been seeing.
What do you say when climate skeptics come along and say there have been droughts and floods in Africa from time immemorial? It's very difficult to prove a link between climate change and these refugee migrations.
Our figures say, and these are our scientists say, that
a child born in the 1970s compared to a child born today, the child now is 60% more likely to be displaced by natural disasters. Is it going to be 200 million or 1 billion people that will have to relocate the next generation? We don't know.
Do they have rights?
No, there's no convention on climate refugees as there is for war and human rights refugees.
So if you're tortured by a dictator, you have certain rights.
Yeah.
If you're tortured by nature, you have no rights.
You have no rights to seek refuge in another place. Of course, the injustice in it, those who did nothing to cause climate change are first and hardest hit. We who caused climate change are last and least hit. It's getting drier, it's getting warmer, it's getting tougher. It's a question of life and death now.
If what Jan says is right, climate migration is already happening. But will hundreds of millions really have to flee their homes by the end of this century? To find out, I'm heading to the drylands of West Africa. Far from the richest state and the richest country on the planet, I'm flying over one of the poorest, Niger, which I've read is the main route for Africans migrating to Europe via Libya. I'm going to a region known as the Sahel, a vast transition zone between desert and forest in Africa. I'm accompanying the UN's Monique Barbu, whose job is to save fertile land from turning into desert.
Should be touching down here in about 15 to 20 minutes.
As we start our descent, the pilot announces the temperature, 117 degrees Fahrenheit. It's my first time in the Sahel.
Nice to meet you. Coming out. Hi, Thomas Friedman.
Leaving the airport, we're escorted by the military. Extremists from Al-Qaeda have been known to kidnap Westerners here. A centuries-old trading post, Agadez used to be one of West Africa's tourist attractions. Today it's a gateway for Africans fleeing the continent. We drive a few miles out of town to the desert crossroads.
What country?
Guinea.
And how long did it take to get here from Guinea?
Guinée, ici, une semaine.
Avant, est-ce que tu venais d'un village ou tu as toujours...
Village.
So he's coming from a village. His family is still there. But he had to leave and go to Conakry.
The city.
To cities because there was no work in his village.
No work in the village.
And now he has no work in the city neither, so he's going further away.
Officials here tell me something that's hard to imagine. As many as 17,000 migrants pass through this exact spot every week. I leave the crossroads and head off to a transit center operated by the International Organization for Migration. This center provides aid to those attempting this dangerous journey.
So let me ask a question. There are all these young men here. How many people are back home who would like to come to Libya, to Europe, to Greece, to Turkey? How many would like to get out?
Man instant bi nii ñi ma wax ne dañuy dem man neen fukki nit ak ñaar ñoo xam ne chaque jour dañ may woo téléphone dama bëgg a ñëw ma ne yoon bi ñaanuma yàlla kenn mu jaar ci yoon bi mais ku fi ñëw da nga gis.
Particularly for his case.
At first I'm confused, but then I realize these guys aren't heading to the dream of Europe. They're coming back from the nightmare that is Libya.
What did you find in Libya? What was it like when you got there?
Bi nga yeggee Libye lan nga fa gis yow?
Dama doon taxale maa ngi woon ci diggante dund ak dee. Bu ma duggee ci biir encore policiers yi nekk foofu bàyyiwuñ ma am jàmm tëj ma 3 mois de prison wala 4 mois de prison.
When you're in that jail in Libya, tell us a little more. What's it like every day?
Lu métti leen doon dund.
Very hard.
Matin, midi,
I was beating them.
soir, on a perdu des personnes, ils sont morts.
am na benn maas bu ñu lay teg dañ lay maas boo ngay jooy da ngay sonn sa yaram bi mooy loolu quoi dama bokk si.
Does he want to go back home now? What does he want to do? Yeah.
léegi moom ñibbi rek laa bëgg.
Instead, these young men are stuck here, persona non grata just about everywhere else. The sense of failure is palpable. I've seen this before, an emerging poverty of hope which makes them easy prey for those who have an agenda. I'm heading towards Dirkou, the last stop before the Libyan border. In the distance, we can see a crowd gathering by a transport truck.
Il a 17 gosses. All those people are from Niger. They are internal migrants. Où sont leurs familles?
Ils sont au village.
I have asked, here are only men, where are the families? And all of them are saying that their family stays in the village back.
How do their families survive back home without the men?
Before they left, they tried to leave enough for the family to sustain for a while. And this man was saying that he just talked to his wife, who told him that now they have finished all the crops and that now they are in the hands of God.
Now they are?
In the hands of God.
Si elle n'a pas de revenus, elle va les chercher ailleurs.
Minister, what is going on in Niger in terms of the climate, the environment, that so many people would be tempted to want to go up to Libya and even beyond to Europe?
La population vit essentiellement de l'agriculture et de l'élevage. Le désert avance à grands pas. Les dunes, le sable bouge et elles envahissent nos terres agricoles. Nous avons une perte d'environ 104 000 hectares par an.
100,000 hectares?
Yes, every year.
Every year. Every year.
Wow.
Alors, c'est la base productive de nos pauvres populations qui s'amenuisent de jour en jour.
This invasion of sand dunes, has that always been part of Niger's history?
Bon, moi, quand j'étais jeune, nos parents ont toujours semé après une pluie abondante entre le 1er et le 6 juin. Aujourd'hui, on peut avoir une pluie en avril. Il se pourrait qu'on fasse un mois sans une goutte de pluie. On peut connaître de graves inondations qui emportent presque une bonne partie des terres, qui emportent même des hommes. Donc, et ça c'est pour nous les effets du changement climatique.
Do you think we in the West are responsible for this also?
La réponse est toute simple. Mais qui pollue la planète? La grande responsabilité de la pollution de la planète relève de l'Occident. Et c'est à l'Occident de payer. C'est une question de sécurité tout court. Tout ceci va produire quoi? Notre jeunesse est sans emploi. Ils vont aller ailleurs, ou alors notre jeunesse répondra à la première sirène de Boko Haram ou des djihadistes.
The siren call of extremism. With nowhere else to turn, there is that darker option. I'm seeing how conditions here might touch American lives. I wonder, do our leaders back home understand the full impact of a changing climate?
This is what we do know. Well over 200 girls were kidnapped by heavily armed gunmen.
Boko Haram, known for mass abductions like this one, is considered one of the world's deadliest terrorist organizations. And it's been affiliated with both ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Could climate change be having an influence on the rise of extremism here?
Here I have 3 maps I wanted to show you. The first is the vulnerability to desertification in Africa. And as you can see...
It runs right through the middle of Africa.
Yeah. Here you have the food riots and where they have exploded the same year. And if you take the map of terrorist attack, Al-Qaeda type of attack, we go exactly again.
Right through the center of the continent.
Yes, this is reality.
Desert, food riots, Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Yeah.
Same map, same places.
Exactly. You can tell me that there is no direct consequences of one of another, but denying that there is no links this is where I am kind of stunned. By 2045, so 30 years from now, they say that 60 million people may be moving from south part of Africa, below the Sahara, to North Africa and to Europe. 60 million.
What you're talking about it's terrifying, Monique.
We have underestimated what is happening in terms of small farmers losing their natural capital. And the only natural capital that people have around here is the land.
Monique, you get to be queen for a day. You get to invest in one big solution for everything we're talking about. What would it be?
You see, today in the world, people are putting walls all over the place. And me also, I dream of a wall. But it is a wall that we have called the Great Green Wall.
Climate change is a major factor in the deterioration of soil here. The Great Green Wall would create a ribbon of restoration projects to conserve every drop of water possible and turn deserts back into fertile land. The project is almost a decade old, but it needs oversight and financing to start making headway.
You know, to restore an hectare of degraded land, it costs between $100 and $300, okay? Compared to peace, to security, to human dignity, what is it we're talking about? Not much. Not much.
60 million refugees fleeing Africa. The West can't even manage 1 million Syrians. And what's so surprising is that so many of the migrants I've met here are from Senegal. I've always thought that Senegal was one of West Africa's most stable and prosperous countries. It appears that might be changing. Decisions made in our backyard impact backyards all across the globe. I'm at Senegal's Meteorological Authority, meeting with the head of their climate division, Dr. Ousmane Jai.
Hi.
Hey, Dr. Jai, Thomas Friedman.
In Niger, I heard a lot about how the desert is devouring farmland, but I need to know the science behind it.
How was it?
Hot.
Really?
Hot.
Okay, let me show you something. As you can see here, you see the temperature variability over year to year. Temperature is going up and up and up. And actually, we have observed a difference of 2 degrees Celsius.
Actually, between here and here is 2 degrees.
2 degrees.
You know, Dr. Jai, when we were at the Paris Climate Conference, the whole objective of that conference was that the world should get together and prevent a 2 degrees centigrade rise in average temperature. What you're telling me is, here in Senegal, you've already hit the 2 degrees.
Exactly, exactly. We are living it.
Dr. Jai tells me Senegal is a sign of things to come. Different regions warm at different rates, but the world's average temperature has been fairly steady, even dropping slightly of late. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, though, it's shot up. The global average has risen a full degree Celsius, and scientists warn just 1 more degree would be catastrophic.
So what impact has that had on agriculture and farming here?
It has a huge impact. And you see that in the plant here, when the temperature rises, the plant needs and demand more water. So that means in those conditions, it will be more and more difficult.
I see, so the hotter it gets, the more water the plants
exactly needs, yes. And the rainfall is now diminishing more and more due to climate change.
What happens down the road?
Let me show you something.
Dr. Jai shows me a climate model developed by leading scientists.
In 2010, when we were thinking forward what will happen, and the worst scenario was the red one. We were thinking this is something that we will not have, of course. And actually we are following the red one.
So we're talking about a temperature rise, average temperature, of over 4 degrees.
Yes, at the end of the century.
Mother of God, I cannot imagine what it would be like to live in Senegal at that end of the extreme range.
Yeah. It will be very difficult, very challenging for them. With limited resources, it will be very difficult.
I never expected my first night in Senegal to be my first rap concert. This country has long been considered one of the few stable democracies in West Africa. But many of the men I kept meeting in the desert in Agadez came from here. The rapper's name is Matador. He's a huge star here. His song is called Tuki, which means to leave, to travel. Matador's message is to stay. Better to be poor and help develop your own country than to be a poor stranger in a strange land. The next day, not far from the concert venue, my guide, Adam C., brings me to this market to meet one of the young men Matador sings about.
I'm going to take you to my friend, one of the millions of young people in Senegal who are hustling, just trying to survive. Assalamu alaikum. Jili. Safa.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
I learned that he left his farming village 4 years ago and became a street seller. Every day now, for 14 hours, he mans his stall selling trinkets.
How much can he make in a day here?
Sometimes he can earn something like 1,000, sometimes 1,500 francs CFA.
So maybe a couple dollars a day he can make.
Yeah.
And out of that, he has to pay his rent, food, and support his brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
When we went to Matador's concert, he kept using that word tuki in his rap, leaving, migrating. Does Jili want a tuki? No future here? Would he like to go back to his village? Can we go see his village?
If you want, we can go to his village.
Jili's village is a 4-hour drive north. I'm finally going to get a chance to see for myself what's actually happening to the farmland here. I hoped Jili would come with us, but he simply can't spare the time off work. On the way, Adams tells me it's the dry season, but as we get closer, it's far more than just dry. It's a wasteland. I'm reminded of something the migrants in Paris told me. The earth doesn't work here. By the time we arrive, we're in the midst of a sandstorm.
Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam.
Do you know a man named Jili? We met him in Dakar, and we wanted to come and see his village and why he left. I wonder if you could help us.
He's inviting us to his house.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
The young man's name is Serene, and he shares his last name with Jili and the village where they were both born.
His wife.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Okay, his mother.
Mother? Oh.
Welcome to sit down, please.
Thank you. Serene, when you were growing up, this is just powder. Was the earth like that here?
Déedéet melul suuf si melul woon nii de bu njëkk boo masaan tibb suuf si def ko nii day mel na dafa niin waaye léegi boo ko yëkkatee ne day tas nii.
Serene, of the young men you grew up with, how many are still here in the village?
Sama xarit yi ma màggandoom su ma dee xalaat da yaakaar naa kenn nekku fi doo fi am benn xarit ñëpp a ngi ci da génn nañ.
Serene's remaining family gathers around us in the courtyard. His mother tells me that of her 5 sons, Serene is the only one left at home.
Comme yaa ngi yor sa papa yor sa yaay te mënaloo sa bopp dara nga gis sa papa di feebar doo ko mën a faj sa yaay di feebar doo ko mën a faj sa xol neexul da ngay daal di obligé rek.
Serene, why didn't you leave?
Demoon naa mais dafa metti tamit.
What country did you go to?
Ban dëkk nga demoon?
Espagne. Juróom benn at laa fa dëkk ndax maa ngi fa dem le 5 octobre 2003 jóge fa le 29 juin 2009 boobu laa fa jógee.
What did you do when you were in Europe?
Liggéey yëpp def naa ko daanaa def ferrailleur daanaa jaay ay seede ci mbedd mi. des fois daanaa fekk ay tubaab yoo xam ne ñu yor lu diis ma jël ko gàddu leen ko ñu fay ma. te amu fu woon yaakaar daal parce que comme que li ma la wax léegi rek am naa benn capacité intellectuelle parce que moo gën may nekk foofa di souffrir daal du ma gis sama yaay du ma gis sama baay samay waa kër du ma ci gis kenn te xaw naa fa yàgg moo tax ma bàyyi ko tamit ñëw.
I've seen many Syrians on the streets of Europe, but I have never been to the place they call home. As I sit in my car, protected from the heat and desperation, I know that for Serene, there is no air-conditioned escape. While some towns back home have just begun to experience climate migration, Adams has brought me to a village in Senegal that's feeling its full brunt.
What is it like to have so many of your husbands and sons out of the village your whole life? Thank you.
Sonn rek lañ fi nekkee man sama njaboot ni ngi ci àll bi kii wopp na daaw ba ren ba mu demee dugg ma nga Espagne dafa feebar kii kenn ki mu ngi ci booru naar yooyu mooy Libya waaw man ma nga feebar.
An older man gets up to tell me that his son also left for Libya more than a year ago.
No news.
I don't have the heart to tell him I was just near the Libyan border. I think of those young men getting ready to cross the desert. So many die along the way. Their bodies never found, their deaths never recorded.
ba nekk sama digg doole samay rek ñëpp nooy ànd di béyal suñuy baay di indi ci sàq yi di semb di suñu yaay di ko bojji nuy dundee léegi njaboot yëpp dañ fi nekk ku ne sa kër say doom nekk ci ñu béy di indi ci kër yi dundee waaw maanaam nii bu dañul fii day yàqu ndax dootuñu fi mën a toog du am lu dundee dañuy mujj na ànd ak suñuy doom daw rek dem ci yeneen dëkk ndax wuti lu dundee.
I came here with a big question, and I found my answer. Migrants are leaving Africa for many reasons, but the ones I met aren't fleeing war. They're fleeing a land that will no longer support them, made worse by a man-made condition they did nothing to cause. As these villages dissolve, I remember there could be anywhere from 200 million to 1 billion climate migrants by the end of the century. This is just the beginning. Whether this trickle becomes a flood is up to us.